I am here with Paula Dice, the zooarchaeologist here in Ashkelon. Remember, a zooarchaeologist is someone who leaves with things animals left behind, so mainly bones. And so we're going to be looking today, and I'm very excited, at gaming pieces. So even in ancient Ashkelon, people were playing dice games and chess games and similar games to what you're playing at your home today, except where your pieces are probably made out of plastic, their pieces, they hand carved out of bone. I think you're in for a real treat, so let's look at them.
Okay, the first piece I'm going to show you is actually very common because I'm going to show you a big version of it first. It's this. It is a part of the ankle. This is from a cow, and it's part of the ankle joint, and it's quite a round bone. I'm going to pick up one and show you one in a smaller animal. So you get to see the difference in size. This is a cow. This would be a sheep.
And what would these have been used for?
These were used like dice. So to make them roll better, you can see how round this one is, okay? To make them roll better, they would flatten them down with a knife and pare them away with like a rasp or a grating.
A grating, so that would be a grating tool, okay.
Right, and they would pare them down, particularly on their sides, right? The side that faces the front and the side that faces the back of the animal. And sometimes they would pare the top and the bottom so that they would roll better.
So, and they would just roll the dice?
And they would roll the dice, and actually, children still play with this today as a game, and they have games of dice.
They play all sorts of dice games with those.
Now, if we look here on the table, we see this bone, by the way, is called an astragalus. We see a number of them, okay, and that's because they're very often found together in little groups in the archaeological site.
Wow! So if they were playing, do you think they might have played with a few at a time?
They might have played with a few at a time. We don't know how many players they had in the game, but they also probably had counters, just like you would have counters on a betting game, right? And just to bring home how this ties into our conception of what dice are, we all know what dice are, this astragalus has been drilled on two sides.
It looks like it has pips.
It looks like it has pips, yes. So and so there's three, but if we turn it over, we see that there are four. And that tells us what?
It's just like our dice.
Just like our dice, that they were using the number 7 on different opposite sides. So
if you haven't taken a look at a die recently, make sure you take a look. If you see the numbers on opposite sides will always add up to 7, and this has been happening apparently thousands of years. I did not know that, Paula.
So you didn't realize that the dice you're playing with are really thousands of years old. The idea.
Concept, wow.
Right. Well, here is actually a pair of dice.
This is neat.
These are not square. They're in the shape of almost a pyramid or a trapezoid. We don't know why. They certainly wouldn't have rolled as well as square dice, but you can see again, here's the number 7.
Right there. And
right there.
They were found as a pair, right?
They were found as a pair.
So whoever was playing with those had to.
Right. And so here I just have an array of different dice. This one is a rather large one. Okay, sometimes the carving is a little hard to see.
Oh, they're really
But they
old.
look exactly like
they
our
do.
dice.
I will say they kind of look wooden, but they are made out of bone.
They are made out of bone. And here we have some really, really tiny little dice.
Yes.
You kind of wonder who would have played with this, right? Really tiny dice, but they're all the same thing. They all add up to 7 on opposite sides.
That's amazing.
Okay, now here we have a big die, and this one is fascinating. It's not made out of bone, rather it's made out of ivory, out of an elephant's tusk. Okay, which is the tooth of an elephant. And not only is it special because it's made out of ivory, which was imported and more expensive than bone, which was an everyday.
They didn't have elephants.
No, they did not have elephants here. So this was a substance that had to be imported from far away.
Oh, so it must have been.
It was costly.
Yeah, probably
it was
expensive.
costly.
Yeah.
But they cheated just like we cheat today. So I want you to look closely at this circle. Okay, and we're going to go to the opposite side of the bone and look at that. There's another side of the circle. What is this? It is a plug. What you're looking at is a piece of ivory that's been carved through, okay? They took the plugs out from the top and they put metal in there. In other words, these are what are called loaded dice.
Yep.
They are loaded so that they will
roll a certain way, so you can win every time.
Right, so you can win. Okay, so that's why I say they
That
like to win back
They
then.
did. That's
right.
Amazing.
One of the things we know from Egyptian tombs, and especially the royal tombs of Ur that date to about 2600 in Mesopotamia, is that the ancients loved board games. They played board games. And they had movers, like we have movers. And very often these were games of chase. So they would roll a dice or a marker and then move a certain number of spots on their board.
We play that game all the time.
We play that game all the time.
Yeah.
And here are some of those movers. They're just very, very beautifully carved.
That looks like a sari piece. I
Right.
mean, to a T, exactly what our modern pieces look like.
Exactly. So here's one that's carved like that. Here's a very little one. This one's been burned, as has this one. But you can see that the shapes are the same. And here's the granddaddy of them all.
That's a big one.
That beautiful piece.
Oh,
right.
These are fantastic, Paula. Well, I'm so excited that we got to see them, and I hope that you look for them in your homes as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.